This is the story about how one god's gift to humanity became the most brutal punishment in history. Picture this. Every morning for over 30,000 years, a man wakes up chained to a rock. His chest has healed overnight, but he knows what's coming. The shadow passes overhead, a massive eagle, sent by the king of the gods himself. It lands on his chest, tears through his flesh with razor-sharp talons, and begins to feast on his liver while he screams in agony. The bird eats slowly, methodically, until there's nothing left. Then it flies away. The man's liver regenerates overnight, and tomorrow it happens again, and again, forever. This isn't fiction. This is the punishment of Prometheus, and by the end of this story, you'll understand why this might be the most psychologically brilliant torture ever conceived, and why it's still happening all around us today. To understand Prometheus's crime, we need to understand the world he lived in, a world where humanity was nothing more than an amusing pet project. Long before Zeus ruled Olympus, the universe was controlled by the Titans, primordial beings of immense power. Prometheus was one of them, but he was different. While his fellow Titans saw humans as barely more intelligent than animals, Prometheus saw potential. He watched these fragile, short-lived creatures struggle in caves, shivering in the cold, afraid of the dark, dying from diseases and wild beasts. The other gods found this amusing. Zeus himself had created humans almost as a joke, weak beings who would worship the gods and provide entertainment through their struggles. But Prometheus looked at humanity and saw something the other gods missed, the spark of greatness. But there was a problem. Humans were incomplete. They had intelligence, but no way to harness it. They had hands, but no tools. They had minds, but lived in darkness, literally and metaphorically. They were like smartphones with no battery, computers with no electricity. All the potential in the world, but no power to unlock it. The gods had decreed that certain gifts were too dangerous for mortals. Fire was the most sacred of these, not just literal flame, but everything fire represented: technology, knowledge, civilization, progress. Fire was the exclusive domain of the divine. What Prometheus did next was the equivalent of breaking into Fort Knox, stealing the nuclear codes, and giving them to every person on Earth. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. During a festival on Mount Olympus, when the gods were distracted by their revelries, Prometheus made his move. He took a hollow fennel stalk, nature's perfect torch, and lit it from the sacred fire of Zeus himself. Then he descended to Earth and gave this flame to humanity. But here's what makes this story so much deeper than just theft. Prometheus knew exactly what would happen to him. As a titan with prophetic abilities, he could see his own future. He knew Zeus would discover the theft. He knew the punishment would be beyond imagination. He did it anyway. Why? Because he also saw what fire would do for humanity. Within generations, humans went from cowering in caves to building cities. They forged tools, created art, developed medicine, and began to question the very gods themselves. Fire didn't just give them warmth and light. It gave them the power to shape the world. But fire came with a cost that even Prometheus might not have fully understood. When Zeus discovered what had happened, his rage was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. But it wasn't just anger at theft. It was something far more complex and terrifying. Zeus realized that Prometheus hadn't just stolen fire. He had stolen the gods' monopoly on power. For the first time in cosmic history, humans could challenge divine authority. They could think for themselves, create their own tools, even, eventually, question whether they needed gods at all. This wasn't just theft, it was revolution. Zeus faced a choice: destroy all of humanity for their crime of accepting the gift, or punish the giver so severely that it would serve as an eternal warning to anyone who might challenge divine authority again. He chose punishment, but not just any punishment. Zeus designed something that would break Prometheus in every possible way: physically, psychologically, and spiritually. The punishment Zeus devised reveals a terrifying understanding of psychology that wouldn't be matched by human science for thousands of years. First, the physical torment. Prometheus was chained to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains with unbreakable bonds forged by Hephaestus himself. Every day, Zeus's eagle would tear open his chest and devour his liver. The liver was specifically chosen because ancient Greeks believed it was the seat of emotion and passion, the very traits that led Prometheus to help humanity. But here's the truly diabolical part. Prometheus was immortal. Every night, his liver would regenerate completely. Not just heal, regenerate. He would wake up whole, with full memory of what was coming, and experience the torture as if for the first time, every single day. Modern psychology recognizes this as perhaps the most effective form of torture possible. It combines physical agony, extreme pain that the mind cannot adapt to, psychological anticipation, knowing exactly what's coming but being powerless to stop it, temporal imprisonment, no hope of the pain ending through death or adaptation, existential despair, the knowledge that this is eternal. But Zeus added one more twist that reveals his true genius for cruelty: hope. Prometheus knew something Zeus didn't want him to know. Eventually, he would be rescued. A hero would come, Heracles, who would kill the eagle and break his chains. This knowledge was both salvation and additional torture. Hope, it turns out, can be the cruelest gift of all. Every day, Prometheus endured his torment while knowing it would eventually end. This meant he couldn't retreat into despair or madness, psychological escapes that make extreme suffering bearable. Instead, he remained fully present, fully aware, counting each day, each year, each century. The Greek word for this kind of hope is elpis, and it's the same word used in the story of Pandora's box. When Pandora released all the evils into the world, hope was the last thing to escape. And Greek scholars still debate whether hope was meant to help humanity or torment it. In Prometheus's case, hope became part of the torture. He couldn't give up because he knew rescue was coming. He couldn't embrace despair because he knew there was an endpoint. He was forced to remain conscious and present for every moment of suffering. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. Prometheus's punishment didn't stop the fire he'd given to humanity. It spread. Every time a human used fire to forge a tool, cook food, or light their way in darkness, they were participating in Prometheus's rebellion. His daily torture became the price humanity had to pay for every advancement, every innovation, every step toward civilization. This created what we might call the Promethean guilt, the unconscious understanding that progress comes with a cost, that knowledge is dangerous, that challenging authority leads to suffering. Look at our myths and stories. Icarus flying too close to the sun, the Tower of Babel, Frankenstein creating life, Oppenheimer, and the atomic bomb. The same pattern repeats. Humans reach for godlike power, and punishment follows. But here's the crucial difference. In every retelling, someone pays the price so that humanity can advance. Prometheus's story teaches us that progress requires sacrifice, sometimes the sacrifice of the very person who makes progress possible. Fast forward to today, and Prometheus's story is more relevant than ever. We live in an age where the fire is information, and those who steal it from powerful institutions face Promethean punishment. Consider Edward Snowden. He stole classified information, fire, from the NSA, the gods, and gave it to humanity, the people. His punishment? Eternal exile, chained to a metaphorical rock called Russia, while powerful forces ensure he can never truly escape. Or Julian Assange. He created WikiLeaks to give humanity access to hidden information. His punishment was years of imprisonment and isolation, a modern eagle eating at his liver every day. The pattern repeats throughout history. Galileo, tortured by the church for teaching that Earth revolves around the sun. Semmelweis, ostracized by the medical establishment for suggesting doctors wash their hands. Whistleblowers in corporations, governments, and institutions who expose wrongdoing. Each time, the same dynamic plays out. Someone steals fire, forbidden knowledge, from those in power and gives it to humanity, then faces punishment designed to break them and warn others. But here's the disturbing truth. We don't just tolerate these punishments. We often participate in them. The eagle, in modern Promethean stories, isn't just those in power. It's also public opinion, social media mobs, and our own psychological need to tear down those who challenge our comfortable ignorance. When someone reveals an uncomfortable truth about our government, our institutions, our own behavior, our first instinct isn't gratitude. It's often anger at the messenger. We attack whistleblowers, ignore inconvenient evidence, and ostracize those who force us to confront difficult realities. This happens because accepting the fire of new knowledge often means admitting we were wrong, changing our behavior, or confronting powerful forces we'd rather not fight. It's easier to attack the Prometheus figure than to deal with the implications of their gift. The detail about Prometheus's liver regenerating every night carries profound psychological truth about trauma and recovery. Trauma therapists recognize a pattern in their patients that mirrors Prometheus's punishment. The way traumatic memories can feel fresh and immediate no matter how much time has passed. The liver, representing our emotional center, can be torn apart by painful experiences, seem to heal overnight, then be torn apart again by the next trigger or flashback. People who've experienced severe trauma often describe feeling like they're reliving the same pain repeatedly, unable to build immunity or tolerance. Each episode feels as raw and immediate as the first, just like Prometheus waking up each morning to face the eagle. But here's the hopeful parallel. Just as Prometheus maintained his essential self through endless cycles of pain and regeneration, trauma survivors often display remarkable resilience. They endure what seems unendurable and continue to find meaning in their suffering. The liver's regeneration also represents something else: renewal. Even in the darkest circumstances, humans have the capacity to heal, to start again, to find strength they didn't know they possessed. After centuries of torment, Heracles, the greatest of all Greek heroes, finally arrived to rescue Prometheus. But this wasn't just a happy ending. It was a necessary completion of the cycle. Heracles represents humanity at its best, strong enough to challenge the gods, brave enough to face the eagle, and grateful enough to remember who gave them the tools to become heroes in the first place. This is the crucial element missing from many modern Promethean stories. Snowden remains in exile. Assange spent years imprisoned. Many whistleblowers die forgotten and alone. But occasionally, we do see the rescue. Sometimes society eventually recognizes its Prometheus figures. Galileo was eventually vindicated. Semmelweis's hand-washing became standard practice. Some whistleblowers are eventually seen as heroes rather than traitors. The rescue reminds us that the cycle isn't complete until humanity acknowledges its debt to those who brought the fire. We must become the Heracles in our own stories. Today's fire is information, and today's Mount Olympus is the internet. Every day, new Prometheus figures emerge. Hackers who expose corporate corruption. Researchers who publish studies that challenge profitable lies. Journalists who investigate powerful figures. Artists who create work that challenges social norms. Scientists who present inconvenient truths about climate change, health, or technology. And every day, new eagles are unleashed. Social media harassment campaigns. Legal persecution. Economic blacklisting. Professional ostracization. Physical threats. The digital age has made everyone a potential Prometheus. Every time you share information that challenges power, question official narratives, or amplify voices that need to be heard, you're participating in the ancient cycle of stealing fire from the gods. But it's also made everyone a potential Heracles. We have the power to rescue modern Prometheus figures by supporting them, sharing their stories, and refusing to let them suffer in isolation. Here's the most unsettling truth about Prometheus's story. Even after his rescue, the punishment continues in a different form. Every human who uses fire, literal or metaphorical, carries a piece of Prometheus's suffering. Every advancement comes with unintended consequences. Every breakthrough creates new problems. Every solution reveals new dilemmas. The fire that gave us technology also gave us weapons. The knowledge that created medicine also created biological warfare. The communication tools that connect us also divide us. The artificial intelligence that solves problems also threatens to replace us. In a sense, we're all chained to Prometheus's rock now. We wake up every day to face the consequences of our technological power, knowing we can't go back to ignorance, but unable to fully control what we've unleashed. The eagle visits us in the form of anxiety about the future, guilt over our impact on the environment, fear of the technologies we've created, the burden of knowing too much about the world's problems. But like Prometheus, we endure because we must. The fire has been stolen, the gift has been given, and there's no returning to the cave. Prometheus's story endures because it captures something essential about the human condition, our drive to reach beyond our limitations, even when we know it will cost us. Every parent who sacrifices for their children, every teacher who challenges students to think critically, every activist who fights against injustice, every scientist who pursues dangerous knowledge, every artist who creates something that might be misunderstood, they're all participating in the Promethean cycle. The fire Prometheus stole wasn't just literal flame. It was the spark of curiosity, creativity, and rebellion that makes us human. It's the drive to ask why and what if, even when the answers might be uncomfortable. His punishment teaches us that progress is never free. Someone always pays the price. But his endurance teaches us that the price is worth paying. The eagle still circles overhead. The chains still bind those who dare to steal fire from the gods. But the fire still burns, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, lighting the way forward into an uncertain but brilliant future. And somewhere, on a rock in the Caucasus Mountains, Prometheus smiles through his pain, knowing that his sacrifice made all of this possible. The liver regenerates. The eagle returns. The fire burns on. And that, perhaps, is the most human story ever told.